Hey everyone, Tactics here, and in this video I'll be going through my simple, easy to execute shrouded routes for Shadowlands Season 4. I'll be going through all of the new, old dungeons, making pug-friendly routes doable for people of all skill levels, whether you're doing a plus 10, your KSM plus 15s, or even Keystone Hero plus 20s. This route is easy, it's simple to execute, it can be done in all affixes in any dungeon, nothing fancy about it at all. If you're wanting something a bit more complicated, I'm going to be doing more in-depth guides into these dungeons as well as more advanced routes as well. So make sure you guys leave a like and subscribe to the channel to be notified when those videos get posted. And let's start off here with the most advanced for sure of the routes, Grimrail Depot, of course. This is going to be a W key route because that's all you can really do in this place. Even in the higher routes, there's maybe room for one skip. So here, like, pretty much the only mobs I'm skipping here are these two overseers. Something that is doable for sure is to drop these two guys if you're willing to do a skip. Again, I'm trying to, for the most part, keep skips relatively low and easy to accomplish. So this would be a very easy skip to do. If you wanted to do it, you can skip right through and just do this 2-pack afterwards. And this just lets you get all your shrouded mobs here. And you skip basically just a bunch of these overseers. Otherwise, though, nothing wrong with just kind of adding these overseers into these packs and not doing a skip at all. One thing to note, these two guys here can be pulled through this wall. This wall is fake, so you can get these 4 extra stacks of the of your buff before doing this first boss. Otherwise, this is just a W key route. There's not much you can do really on this train besides that stuff at the beginning. So you know, you just kind of walk through here. Grimrail Depot, everybody, very complex. Moving on, Iron Docks. So this route is a bit different. Well, there's more choice anyways. So off the top here, I have this double pull. I also have this pull here where you can add this other Siege Master guy when he pats up to here without pulling this pack together. And then we have the big mini boss pack. Note that in a lot of these dungeons, I am going to actually pull the mini boss, especially if it's early in the dungeon, because while it can be a bit of a pain, post the 1 nerf it's had, the blood shield's not too big. And I do think the 3 stacks it gives, especially if you're doing like, you know, between 10 and 20 level keys, is definitely worth it, especially on like Tyrannical, where you're going to get like this triple buff stack for every single boss in this dungeon, for example, right? So for the most part, I do think it's worthwhile, and I'll especially give reasons in later on dungeons. But basically, this is super early in the dungeon. You know, it's a pull you can pop CDs on, and it's well before the first boss of the dungeon, so you get pretty big value on all the bosses by killing this guy. There's also a couple down here that you can drag these 2 foot soldiers onto, and also then you can do this 4-pack and run over and tag this 1 infiltrator to group it all together and then do the boss. I then have this one kind of big thing for the Iron Stars. In this route, I've only circled the Iron Star percentage that you need to hit 100% W keying at the end of the raid. So notice how much I'm missing. I'm going to assume that you don't have perfect Iron Stars, you missed some stuff, but definitely your main goal here is to make sure you Iron Star all these ogres, all the Ogron, including these 2 here. You can just drag these 2 onto this first Iron Star and they can just Iron Star through and get all this stuff. So you really just want to make sure you're at 50.25% or 201 enemy forces count when you're done this. If you have more, that gives you the ability to skip some of this end trash here, which I've just kind of W keyed through. So if you get some more, great. Skip at the end, or, you know, just don't and just W key through, and you don't have to worry about counting any of that stuff. But yeah, assuming you're at your 50.25, you can just kind of move through the dungeon at this point, W keying. And again, always feel free to add or subtract from these pulls as you deem necessary. I kind of tried and specifically like, you know, reduce pull size, for example, like this blue stuff. If you're up to it, add it to the red stuff. This is a big pull right after this because I'm assuming you have CDs up because you just did boss and you just did this pull where you should pop no CDs whatsoever. So I assume you have big CDs, so maybe you do this together, but maybe you don't have CDs. Maybe you separate this pull in half. Perfectly fine. Do it as you see fit. One thing to note is that these mobs will take extra damage from the cannon fire here. So if you can ever do this like Laborer and have them be outside in the cannon fire while you're doing the rest of the pack, value. Otherwise, not a big deal. You can kind of do this pack together. Laborer is still alive. Drag Laborer into this blue pack here. Perfectly fine. But then, yeah, you are just W keying through the dungeon at this point. Again, skip as you see fit if you get extra percent in this area. And also, don't forget this infiltrator here. before the last boss. He's just over on the other side of the boat. So make sure you tag him, get your extra stack before the last boss. Easy. Moving on, we have Streets of Wonder. And this is by far the dungeon that has kind of been pretty heavily impacted by this this affix. Percent has gotten really wonky in this dungeon. As you can see, I'm at 105% right now. But let's talk through it a bit. So for now, what I'm suggesting is kind of going through the beginning part here and pulling everything, including the mini boss here and the one overseer. So this will let you get your triple stack before any boss in this dungeon, and that is pretty value, right? That's 6% haste or crit for the most part for almost everybody on your entire party. That's a lot of damage, and you get it for every single boss. And I think I'm pretty certain this is worthwhile. So I think you do play this guy, especially if you have like a healing reduction in your party. You know, it's going to take a little while, but it's a lot of stats. It is very early in the dungeon. I'm convinced, at least in the 10 to 20 range, you're going to play this guy. I feel like you maybe stop playing this guy on higher keys depending how badly he scales, but I feel like, yeah, in the 10 to 20 range, just 6% haste or crit for like this early in the dungeon before you've done a single boss in a 5-boss dungeon is for sure worth. So yeah, you clear now this entire room before this boss, do the boss, and then you go left here because you have access to all these Nathrezim here. I think you're just going to get more value down here. I do have you skipping the cat, so for those that don't know, you can jump up here onto this railing and just jump down onto the stairs here and completely skip these cats, and you can just run this infiltrator to this other infiltrator while you're waiting for the RP and kind of do those guys. You can also even do this red pack here while you're waiting for RP as well. But then you go do this boss, you know, do red pack if you haven't done it. Otherwise, you know, you got this blue pack here. Notice I haven't pulled this boss. We'll talk about that later. And then you go over to this side of the dungeon, right? You're doing mailroom stuff. You're doing this stuff over here. Obviously, you can't really woe buff this area anymore. No woe. So you just have these Nathrezim while you're doing the maze stuff. You can grab this guy if you go over here. It's not a big deal if you don't, right? It's relatively late in the dungeon. It's a single stack. Not a big deal if you don't get this guy. But again, you can if you want to. Don't need to. Especially do not need it for count, right? We're already very overcount. Very overcount. But yeah. Do the boss. Move over. I have this guy being skipped here. So, there's a couple things you can do. If you really are like, you know what? Nah, I don't want to do this guy at all. What you can do is instead, you can skip here. And skip all this stuff here instead. And you can instead pull this guy over here. Now, you can, on the other hand, just straight up skip this guy. The problem is this is a little rough, especially in pug groups, so I'm not fully sold on it in pug groups. But basically what you can do is if you just get up close to this guy, you can just tap the thing on the side here. If you jump over this area, you can just tap it. You can get close, just get close enough to interact and go up without aggroing. You can also have like a hunter, for example, tag this thing, run this way, have everyone else go up while that happens. Priest Mind Soothing, this makes it significantly easier as well, but that's not necessary. You can do it without Mind Soothe. If you don't trust that, you can just kill this guy. But again, like I had a really hard time kind of developing a route that just didn't go insanely over count in streets because of how the seasonal affix now works, right? It's like yeah, you could just not pull these Nathrezim here, but like why wouldn't you pull it, right? It doesn't make sense to not pull these guys. And so you end up kind of wanting to do skips of some sort, which again, I'm trying to avoid. So you have the option, you can do these 2 packs here, which will give you 3 stacks and maybe do the skip on this guy, or you can, you know, skip this stuff. You lose your 3 stacks, but this thing at the end is much easier because I would say of the 2 skips, this is clearly a simpler skip to do and something people will not struggle with. This may be something that's much more difficult for people to accomplish correctly. So take that how you will. This may be the better play in terms of pugs doing this correctly versus doing this correctly. But in terms of value, you're certainly going to get more value because you're getting 3% stats here. Sorry, 3 stacks. So 6% stats here on everyone in your group before you do a single boss versus this, which frankly, it might even be a time save to do both of these as well. Just because, like, if you get the skip at the end, great. If you don't, you still had 6% haste on all your people the entire dungeon. So I'm going to recommend doing this. This is my recommendation. But again, just be careful about skipping this last guy. It can be a bit of a problem. Moving on to Gambit. Gambit's very straightforward. Not much has changed for Gambit. A little bit of rooting. So now this is where you would do your big pull off the top. Giants have been significantly nerfed. Definitely worth pulling into here. Doing a big pull there. Pull, you know, pull this in. Mini boss pull. Dude pull. And then, of course, a skip on this area. Definitely still something you're going to probably want to skip. But the skip is fairly easy to accomplish because you've killed both the Murloc groups in front of it. So that's my suggestion there. Do boss, and then you're just kind of W king through the dungeon. Note there is a Nathrezim inside this cave. Do not forget him. You will not have enough count if you forget this Nathrezim. So get him. You got your packs here. Got your packs here. Same deal. There's a Nathrezim off in this corner over here. Do not forget him. You will not have count if you forget him. But otherwise, you're just kind of pulling these groups as you see fit. I have it like this because of Inspiring Week. You know, you pull this with this guy so that this big pack isn't all Giga Inspiring. But, you know, pull as you see fit. Pull bigger, smaller, whatever you want as you can or need to do. Moving on. Mechagon Junkyard. Okay, so the big thing for Mechagon Junkyard is that this routing will change week to week based on the robot dude that was the hard mode. So currently on North America, for example, he's floating above Gunker, and when you kill a boss, he will move to Bondo's Yard. This will change week to week. So your route, at least the order you kill mobs in, will change from week to week depending on where this robot is and where he flies to. So currently, I've put like a route in for what you would do on like current week in North America, where you would kind of move this way, and do Bondo's Yard first, and then go to Gobbamac second, finally Gunker third. However, your preference on most weeks will be Gunker first, because out of the three bosses, Gunker is the one that you would want to lust on the most, and at least with Junkyard, groups are slamming this key because of shockbot usage. That is probably the biggest thing pugs are going to struggle on, is bot usage. So basically, shockbots are going to carry you, and you're going to want to get shockbots ASAP because they just do so much damage. They fully scale with haste and only haste. So to add value to shockbots in this dungeon, you can grab, even if normally haste is not good for you, you grab the haste buff from Shrouded. And yeah, basically the goal here is to get shockbots ASAP. Like if you're a pro or whatever, like you're a stealth class, whatever, you can go grab this shockbot. You can grab this shockbot here. This is just a pat you can avoid. But basically this route is kind of to maximize your ability to get shockbots, and showing you what stuff you need to pull, so that you can just pull this stuff in a different order depending on where the mini boss is. Or not mini boss, the big floating robot. So again, NA this week, you would jump down here, grab these two packs together. You can have someone go and get this shockbot. If you have a rogue in your group, they can go grab this shockbot over here. And if your other DPS can go grab this shockbot. Before you've done one pull, all three DPS have shockbots. You do a ton of damage. We then move up here and do this pull here. This is probably the scariest pull on Inspiring in particular because of this Grunter. Might recommend CCing that guy because the Hexers, or Shaman, sorry, are a bit spooky. But yeah, this is the next pull. This unlocks 2 haste bots for you. 2 haste bots. And again, as I mentioned, shockbots scale with haste. So, you know, a couple haste bots for your DPSers. You can then walk down and grab this shockbot here without pulling this pack here. You might get like one of these Grunters. Not a big deal. But just pull the shockbot and then go back and, oops, sorry. And you're going into Bondo's Yard first because this boss, or this robot, when it's on Gunker, after you killed one boss, it will fly to Bondo's Yard. So if you went up here and did Gobbamac first, for example, you would then have to run all the way down and do Gunker second because the hard mode boss would be Bondo's Yard, and you do not want to do the hard mode boss. So instead, what we do this week is we go Bondo's Yard, Gobbamac, then Gunker, then last boss. That's an example of what we would do on this specific week in NA. So we go in here, and your goal again is shockbots. So there's a little hole you can squeeze in back here, grab this shockbot, do this 3-pack. This pat is giga dangerous. Be very, very careful. You would then be able to sneak back out and do this guy solo. Actually, he's in the wrong spot even, so let me put him in the right spot. You would squeeze back out. You can squeeze in between the metal plates up here. Do this guy solo. There's a health bot and a haste spot. This would be your second health bot, of course. You pass this spot here. So if your other DPS that got this shock bot wasn't able to get this grease spot, there's a third grease spot now. Otherwise, that's your fourth grease spot. So you do this guy, and then you can do the pat, and you can do this 3-pack. Again, another haste bot over here, and another health bot over there. And then you do this 2-pack here. Again, the crawlers are a little scary, so you kind of want to do them alone for the most part. Another health bot. Do this double pack. Another shock bot for your healer. And so now, at this point, before you've done a boss, you have 5 shock bots. You have potentially 5 haste bots. And you have potentially 4 health bots. So that's kind of how you want to use bots in this dungeon. And you can do a similar thing even if you go a different boss first, right? Like going Gunker first. What do you have over here? So you still get these bots over here. And then you have a shock bot there, shock bot there, shock bot there. So you can easily get 5 shock bots ASAP. Got a welding bot. Haste bots are a little low over here, but there's the 1, 2, and 3 haste bots right there. So you'd only have 3 haste bots. I believe you can also yoink this one. So if you also count that one, that's also 5 haste bots there. So even if you're going Gunker first, which I think is the actual recommended thing for the most part. So if I go through that, you would run down here. You wouldn't actually do this pack first. You would run down. You would skip. You would grab your bots on the way down. You would run all the way around here. You would do this stuff as your first pull. This would be your first pull here. And you would be at 4 shock bots during your first pull. Right? So what you're pulling doesn't change depending on the week. It's just the order you pull it in will change. Number 1 rule, just avoid that hard mode robot and you're good. It doesn't really matter. Just these are going to be the things that you're pulling. But again, order will change. So just keep that in mind. Note for this last thing, you can just kind of move along to the side and skip this pat, depending on where the pat is, right? If the pat is, for example, at the bottom of the pat, you can go along the top here and skip really easily, but be careful. There are stealthed cats patting around in this circle area. So you want to be careful. If this pat's like over here, for example, you do not want to dodge left. You'd want to dodge right, but also be careful of these cats. So if this you just want to watch the cats. These cats are stationary. These cats can pat. So you don't always get punished for dodging here, but you can. So the best place to dodge this pat is you either dodge it early in the pat or late. One of the two. Dodging on either side works very well. Dodging here, going up. Dodging here, waiting down and letting it go past you. And then you can do this pack here into the boss is ideal. Not the end of the world if you're forced to pull this pack, right? It's something you'd rather skip, but you know, if someone body pulls it, someone body pulls it. It's not the end of the world. You're not going to be ridiculously overcount, right? It's an extra 3%. So not ideal, but not the end of the world. And frankly, if you're all still shock botted up at this point, this pack will just melt anyway. So not the end of the world. And then you're moving into the last boss there. So watch what you're pulling here. Note the shock bots on MDT. And of course, guys, all these routes are going to be linked in the description for your use as well. But yeah, shock bots are king in here. Get your shock bots ASAP. Moving on. Workshop. Another dungeon that's a little cringe on percent. You see there, I'm at 114% now. It's bad, man. It's bad. There's barely anything you can really skip in this dungeon. There is a little caveat to that in that Warlock / death skipping does work for the last pack. So I'll talk about that in a second. But really, I mean, you're just W keying through this dungeon. I am skipping the mini boss in this dungeon because you get it. Where is this guy? You would get it at 40% and 1 boss into the dungeon. And you're already going to be very overcount. And I'm not sure I trust the end skip in a puck. Now, what I'm talking about is this pack here. You can Warlock gate skip this if you have a Warlock. That is one of the only things that works besides a full death skip. And of course, for a full death skip, you need a battle res class available, and for someone with a res to die relatively quickly into the pack, but also somewhere where they're not going to get murdered when they get battle res kind of deal. And that's hard to do without already having a Warlock, right? Normally, if you're death skipping, you're like soul stoning someone. So it's definitely a bit challenging to do this death skip, and that's kind of why I don't recommend it. On the other hand, this is very easy to skip. You actually just hug this right wall, and you can skip this, no problem. Nothing needed. No stealth, no soothe, nothing. You can just hug the right wall here and skip this 2-pack, so much easier to skip. You know, it's an extra 10% count to do this. And of course, any single comp can do this. Now, if you did want to skip something in this dungeon, I think the play would be probably to skip this stuff here. And then go through, do this pull around here, of course around the LOS for these slimes, do this pull, and then go through and up, and do the rest as normal. This is much less cringe percent-wise. It's not the biggest time save because this stuff really doesn't take that long, but this is probably the biggest time save you could get given this current route. And again, still, if you have the Warlock, you can add that in, subtract that pull, and you would just have to probably add like this mob here, which again kind of makes skipping a little meh, but that's probably what you would drop. You would drop these waste processing units if you wanted to drop something. But yeah, in general, you can just W key this dungeon and be just fine, just like that. There it is. But yeah, the percent number looks wonky. If you were to skip anything, skip this. But yeah, percent very, very wonky. There's just not a lot of things that you can feasibly skip in this dungeon, unfortunately. So that's kind of what you're left with. Then we got Lower Kara. Lower Kara. So in my Lower Kara route that I'm going to recommend you guys do on Pugs, I'm actually going to say after Opera, you go Maiden first, then Morose, then Horse Guy. I think that's going to be your best bet, and I'll walk you through why. So, you know, first Spirit, just drag it through into this pack. Be very careful with how many Philanthropists you pull. They hurt. One pack at a time. Again, Philanthropists, pain. You can have someone run ahead on that last pack and start the RP on your whatever opera you have. Again, this rotates weekly. The opera is the same for the entire week, but it's also per region. So like right now, NA and EU have different operas. And next week, we're both going to have a new opera. We've got Opera Boss. You then walk in here. You pull everything on the ground floor. All these guys up here are on the balcony. Don't worry about them. Just pull the ground floor stuff. Mini Boss, not really skippable. Then you move downstairs. Pull these packs as big or as little as you see fit. You're going to see probably groups one pull this entire room. But again, that's much scarier for a pug group. Do it as you see fit. Same with this pull here. Like this is probably going to be one pulled in big keys, but do it as small as you need to. You know, maybe one group at a time. Maybe you can do all the groups at a time, whatever you want. And this is where I'm going to do a skip because again, you look at the percent, and I've skipped all this stuff. Like this is some big trash count stuff. Ushers are just a giant pain. You might see people like pulling every single usher and kiting around this pillar. I don't recommend doing that in a pug. They're definitely going to get themselves murdered with flashlights doing that or whatever. These are nasty for your tank. They're nasty for your party. I recommend skipping them entirely, and this is a super easy skip. It's a straight line W key skip right here. And you're already like away from this padding guy because you've pulled all this stuff in the middle. Walk right through the middle, turn right, pull this stuff here. Grab this Nathrism and pull it into all this non-elite stuff. This is a big pull, but they're all non-elite. They're not scary. Walk in here, hug the right wall. Hug the right wall and pull these four. You can avoid all these guys by hugging the right wall. This is just a pat, so depending on your timing, maybe it'll be here, maybe it won't. It's not the end of the world if you add this to this pull here. Not a big deal, add it. Your percentage will be just fine with or without it. So grab it if you need to, avoid it if you can. You then move over here, again, hugging the right wall. Have someone tap one of these infiltrators to pull these two together with these guys into this room over here with Maiden. Do all these guys together. Lots of Nathrism count, big, nice. And then you've got your Maiden. And then you can run right back, hugging the left wall now. Same wall, but, you know, hugging this wall. Get out. And you may be wondering, like, this is backtracking a route. Why are we doing this? And basically, this little hallway of backtracking here basically gets around having to use Shroud and multiple skips is why I'm doing it this way. There's a real like chance that the high key route ends up doing like a Morose first after all this stuff, but that's going to involve doing a lot more skips and stuff. And again, I'm trying to reduce the number of skips as much as possible. So this is how we do that. You go Maiden first out of Opera, and this lets you backtrack instead of doing more skips. And so what you do here, you backtrack, you go this way, and you actually jump off the balcony right here. So right here, you can jump off a balcony. I think it's actually right here. And there's a pack. If we go, where is it? There it is, Banquet Hall, this pack. You can jump right down on top of this pack, do this pack, and grab this Nathrism whenever he pats towards you. Pack. You can go into Morose. Then you can clear through this way. 2 packs of servants, run down, do all of the Ataman trash. Remember, you have to do all this trash because any remaining trash will pull when you pull Ataman. And again, another room where you pull as much or as little of this trash at a time as you see fit and as you are comfortable with doing. This is just kind of a basic layout for you, but do what you want, do what you need, and then you do Ataman last. And that's the end of that dungeon. So that's my recommendation for pugs. I think it's straightforward, very minimal skips, right? One very simple skip instead of doing like 3 or 4 if you did like a Moreau's first route. So I think it's fairly straightforward and definitely going to be the play in pug groups. But yeah, let's go to Upper Karazhan now. Upper Karazhan. So similar idea. You're running up here. These 3 guys are just as you run up here. You can, kill them as you're running up. Not the biggest deal. We drag him to this golem, but again, this stuff will probably be like dead or dying as you're getting up here, so you can just kind of DPS it down and kill it before I do the golem. You got mini boss, and you got these pulls here. Again, do as many or as little together as you see fit. Probably is not too difficult to double pull these. Do 2 pulls instead of 4. Some crazy people probably gonna 4 pull these, and just LOS over here to group them up. Don't forget, you can easily reset curator as you need to right here. Not the end of the world. But yeah, then you boss. Then you jump down. And notice here, I am pulling mini boss. And again, some people might be mad at me, but I think this is worth. I think this is super worth because you can drag this mini boss off to when you come down here. So it'll be your right. Pull the mini boss off to the right. This is another infiltrator. You just do them together. Off over here. The bats don't shoot at you down here. They will shoot at you on this platform. But if you drag mini boss down here, the bats don't shoot at you down there. And you can just get 4 stacks for Medivh. And the big thing about this dungeon in particular is that this timer is free if you never wipe on a boss. And what's going to help you not wipe on a boss? 8% stats on all of your party. So yeah, I think this is giga worth. I think this is super worth for sure. It lets you kind of regen cooldowns or whatever, have a breather, maybe regen lust if you lusted earlier in the dungeon. This idiot, on the other hand, you skip this guy for sure. He is a giant pain. He's got the threat drop. He's got a bunch of fire stuff, cleaves, all that stuff. Do not do this guy. This is a pug nightmare for sure. You can shroud it. You can invis pot it. You can have like a hunter or a mage or a rogue. Well, if you're a rogue, you're shrouding it. Or whoever, just kind of pull this guy off to the side and, feint it off or die or whatever while everyone else runs through. Whatever you need to do, get past this guy. You don't want to pull him. Trust me, not worth. Do not do. Do not do. Can't do done. No. Come to boss, you jump down. All you're pulling here are the 2 Nathrazim guys. Care the rat pat. So this guy pat's like pretty close here. So you want to like jump down ASAP and run straight and pull the 1 rat that's actually Nathrazim. Run across here. Watch this rat. It has like a really big pat like this big line here. And so you just want to pull this other Nathrazim and like chill over here. Kill those 2 guys before boss to get your stacks. Go into boss. Then you go to the library. Because I've pulled so much stuff before, you don't need all of this like double pull. And also, this is a pretty hard pull to actually do in a pug group. I think what you can actually do is like drop, yeah. So you can actually just like come up, kill this 1 mana worm, and then jump off and only do a double pull here if you really wanted to. That would eliminate 3 more mana worms from this pull, which is probably worth, honestly. I'll put this in there. That's probably worth, but just makes this pull way easier, which it's a little weird on because of the orbs, and you have to like catch the orbs, not let them hit the mana devour kind of thing. And obviously the more mana devours are, the more orbs there are you need to catch. It's a bit of a pain, and you already have so much percent because I've made you pull the mini boss because I'm crazy. So yeah, you can skip half the stuff here. I also recommend you skip this entire bridge. This bridge is a giant pain as well. That's kind of the story of this dungeon. There's a lot of trash in this dungeon that is just a giant pain. And while you could do this in a pug, I guarantee you pugs are going to chain die on this bridge. There's a knockback. There's swirlies from the bats you have to dodge. There's these guys that have frontals. There's the orbs you have to soak. Man, this bridge is just deadly as hell. And it's very easy to invis or shroud skip. Because you can just walk up to this area. Don't start from back here. These guys aren't going to aggro to you. Just hug this corner and start from here. Start your skip from here. Very easy to do even without speed. And you just need to get into the chest room. Trust me, this bridge is pain. You never want to do this bridge in pugs. It's going to kill you 9 times out of 10, not worth. And then you just have chess event, which again gives you a metric ton of count. Going into the last boss room. There's not an MDT, but that's what you do after that. But there it is. All 8 Season 4 dungeons in Shadowlands and how I would handle them in a simple, easy to execute route with the Shrouded affix. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel for more content like it. Like I said, I'll be doing more in-depth guides, things like kicks, stops, purges, dispels, all those things for the dungeons. As a refresher, I'll also be showing my advanced route that we use in high keys as well. So that's interesting to you, make sure you guys check it out. Check out my Twitch stream as well at Tactics. Always happy to answer any questions you have over there or down in the comments below. Again, these are all down in the description, these routes, if you want them for yourself. So let me know how your keying goes, and I'll see you in the next video.